What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Brinson. I'm your host. Press coverage show. Tyler Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully. We're going to talk about terrible divisions. Some bad football out there, Sully, in these streets. What's going on, buddy?
What's going on? Yes, I know a thing or two about bad football these days.
Yeah. As an NC State guy and you as a Patriots guy, we're just going to pretend that didn't happen.
Sure. I like it. I'm down.
Yeah, it could be a whole derail thing. I mean, I was talking on the radio. I mean, it's just like it's very un-Belichickian, right? You don't see that. You haven't seen it in 25 years.
Yeah,
not great. Bad football team.
Not great. That's usually New England's on the other end of those more often than not. It feels
exactly right. We saw Tom Brady, former Patriots quarterback, lose despite holding a 17-0 lead on Sunday, which is also something that's kind of rare. You don't usually see that from Brady either. Joe Burrow came back, 4 passing touchdowns. Bengals beat the Bucs 34-23. If they win that game, they're 7-7. And because the Carolina Panthers lost at home to the Pittsburgh Steelers, a pathetic display of football on both sides, really. And because the Northern States beat the Atlanta Falcons 21-18, we now have a situation where, Sully, the NFC South standings are just repugnant. Tampa 6-8. All 3 other teams 5-9. Nobody, the best point differential amongst them, -27, the worst. The Bucs actually -41. So my question to you is this the worst division in the history of football?
I think it's close, but you could even make the case that this might not be the worst division in the NFL right now if you look at certain statistics. Whoa. I mean, you look at the AFC South, and I know that you can kind of obviously parse the Houston Texans.
Take. I love it.
But you look at the records outside of the division. So outside of them beating up each other,
right?
The AFC South is 11-29. The NFC South, when you take away all of their interdivision fighting, is 12-26. They have one more win.
That's incredible.
So, I mean, there is, obviously, Houston is kind of dragging that number down a little bit more than the rest, but let's just say you want to take away the last place teams in those divisions. Obviously, it would be Atlanta in the NFC South. Believe it or not, the Atlanta Falcons have the best record outside of the division in that entire division.
Incredible.
At 4-5. So, I mean,
Atlanta's 1-4 in the division. Come on, Falcons! You win a couple of those freebies, and you're cruising to this division title.
But to hammer your point home at just how bad this division in the NFC South is, the Buccaneers, who we were just talking about, should have a driver's seat. I mean, this team won the Super Bowl not that long ago.
Yeah,
we're looking at them maybe being 500, but you look at what they've done outside of the division. They're 3-7. They're a bad football team up against superior competition, obviously, like Cincinnati the other day. Obviously, they went up 17-0, but Cincinnati flexes. They remember who they are, and they're a much better football team than Tampa Bay right now. It's a 3-7 football team, which is it's crazy to think of that when you have Tom Brady as your quarterback. This is a compelling argument. Scroll up. Well, you don't have to scroll up. I can just tell you what it is. I mean, I was going to say, let's go look at the AFC South. I mean, they are 18. This is the cumulative record, right? 18. I'm doing the math very slowly. 18-36-2. The NFC South is 21-35. So they're actually worse as an overall record. The only difference is that the AFC South has one team, the Jacksonville Jaguars, with a positive point differential of 6. However, if you look at the point differential of the NFC South, it's like 135, negative 135. The AFC South is negative 233. You may have a compelling case here, Sully. I mean, they're both bad. I mean, we're both talking about horrible, horrible divisions, but in the NFC, I feel like maybe the NFC South has a little bit more, I guess, depth about how bad they are, because you can make the case that obviously Jacksonville,
like a Big Ten ACC challenge, the NFC South would probably win.
Yes.
Yeah. The Titans have lost, I believe, 4 straight games. Yes, and they beat Denver, they beat Green Bay, they lost to Cincy, Philly, Jacksonville, and the Chargers. So those are like all playoff caliber teams. They lost in OT, of course, to Kansas City. Their wins are the Raiders, the Colts, Washington back in week 5. The Colts again, Houston, Denver, and Green Bay. Like, when you really start to parse it, the Titans haven't beaten anybody
They've lost 4 straight, as I mentioned. They get the Texans again. They'll probably rout the Texans this week, but then they close with Dallas and then Jacksonville, and it's like if
the Jags win out, they win.
Yeah, absolutely. Can they win out, or do they have to? I mean, I think they beat Tennessee.
They already have one of the games with Tennessee in hand. If they obviously take the other one, they have the head-to-head tiebreaker. So So I mean, they don't necessarily have to win out, but it'd be nice if they did.
Yeah, I guess the other thing too is like when we look at this division, everyone is 500 or worse, but the leader is not below 500. So maybe that's why it's not on everybody's radar.
Right.
Historically speaking, let's compare it to some other these. So, okay, I mean, wow, what did you flip this? You flip this entire podcast on its head in a good way, because I had a list of other divisions that we could look at, and I think the we mentioned the NFC South. I think the GOAT, or I guess I don't know what animal it would be. It's like the woat, the worst of all time.
Woat, sure,
yeah. The 2014 NFC South, probably my top choice. 7-8-1. Carolina won that. Negative 227 point differential. The division as a whole went 22-31-1. Is that right?
I think it's 41.
41. Yeah, I did that.
I have that on my list as well.
I was doing the math late in the evening after podcasting.
And I'll tell you this too. That division that year was 11-28-1 in non-division games.
That is really bad.
And the team that won it, the Carolina Panthers, obviously, they did not win a game from October 6th to December 6th that season when they won the division. It's incredible.
Just incredible. The other one that I was sort of like lining them up, I think the 2010 NFC West deserves serious consideration as well.
We're doing research and we both come up with the same ones.
Prepared, right? As people probably remember, that was the 2010 Seahawks who finished 7-9, won the division, and then promptly beat the Saints with the Beastquake run. That was I can't remember if it was 2012. That would have been the Matt Hasselbeck was their primary quarterback, I believe, that season. And Sam Bradford had just been drafted first overall by the Rams, who lost. It was like, I believe Sunday Night Football was Rams Seahawks for the winner went to the playoffs at 7-9. And there was, we'll get to this in a second maybe, but this is when people start to question, should you be allowed to make the playoffs as a division winner if you're below 500? And to that, I say, yes, of course you should. Divisions are cyclical. Divisions suck sometimes. The AFC South has been terrible for a while, but Peyton Manning and the Colts, we're in there. We're a dominant team from that division for a long time as well. Maybe the Jaguars will get there. The Panthers, the NFC South has had a Super Bowl team in the last 5 years, as you note. The Saints were excellent for almost the entirety of Drew Brees and Sean Payton's run. The Falcons went to the Super Bowl. Matt Ryan had MVP.
Panthers went to a Super Bowl.
Panthers went to the Super Bowl, had an almost undefeated season. To me, it's like, as I told Adam Gold today on radio, as someone who roots for a team in the Atlantic Division, which RIP Atlantic Division in the ACC, but basically have to deal with Clemson Clemson and Florida State for the last 15, 20 years. Of course it sucks, but you have to reward the division if you've got the division, I think.
Right. And going back on just how we're kind of comparing, obviously we're talking 2010, 2014, and this year comparing. There is a case, and I know we're both kind of pointing to that 2014 NFC South as maybe the key competitor to this year's edition. But I will say this, and I tried to look it up to see who had the worst point differential as a division winner. That year in 2010 with the Seattle Seahawks, they had a minus 97.
That is outrageous.
So just to give that a little bit more context, we're talking about this year's NFC South. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are technically in first place right now, have a minus 41 point differential. So minus 97 compared to minus 41.
I'm trying to think if we can get, I'm sure we probably can. So let's see, this week in week 16, just to go back to the week 16. Let's say the Jets beat the Jags. I'm gonna give the Titans a win over the Texans, just because I think you got to do that. But Texans have been frisky. Cowboys over the Titans in week 17, and Jags over the Texans, and then Jags over Houston, which would give us an 8-9 Jacksonville Jaguars division winner. Which, if the Bucks are very unlikely, I think, to get to 9 wins. I mean, it feels safe to say that, right?
Yeah, it feels that way.
if the Bucks win at 8-9 and Jacksonville wins the division at 8-9, I think that your case, this could be the worst division of all time, or at least it is the worst division in the NFC South, and it would be in the conversation for worst of all time. Yes. I think you would need, Jacksonville would probably need to, they're probably not going to finish with a negative point differential if that happens, unless they're just blown out by the Cowboys. So that would make it tough to top that 2010 Seahawks team, I think.
I'm with you. I mean, that's just a ridiculous number in terms of point differential.
Negative
97.
Was it? I wonder if they were. Was there like a significant blowout, or just most of the games they lost?
I'd have to double check. I didn't dive that deep into it, but
I got 41-7 lost to the Giants, 33-3 lost to the Raiders. They actually won 31-6 in week 1 against the 49ers, which is just wild. Yeah, they had many games where it was double-digit losses, particularly down the stretch, and then beat the Rams 16-6 in the final week of the season. Lost to the Bears. The Bears in the freaking playoffs. God, what was that Bears team? How did they score 59 points in that game?
That's not the Rex Grossman year, is it?
That was Cutler. Okay.
Oh,
good.
Cutler. Okay.
I was about to say, if that was like Grossman and Hasselbeck, good Lord. Hasselbeck actually had a huge game, 3 passing touchdowns. Anyway, back to modern day. I'll ask you this. Who wins the NFC South? And we can also dive into that. And who wins the AFC South really quickly. And how would you want to bet it? We've got currently at Caesars, Tampa Bay is minus 320, which feels way too steep given how they played. Panthers are plus 360, Saints 22, and Falcons 22-1. I'm going to update that and make sure that hadn't refreshed or changed. But I think those are the odds as of last evening.
I think I would go, if I'm betting it, I'm going with Carolina. Just because I feel, as weird as it sounds, I guess I feel a little bit more confident. And again, we're using all of this with a grain of salt because you don't feel any confidence with a lot of these teams. But if you're telling me, what your gut tell you, not necessarily what you want in terms of value on the betting market, feels like Tampa Bay kind of stumbles their way in. And it just kind of, for whatever reason, they kind of find a way to get in. And whether or not they're a sacrificial lamb or not, but I think that I think they find a way, but I don't like the value.
Yeah, you can't bet minus 320. I got a bunch of bucks like minus 150 that when it was when Brady was when he came out of retirement, loaded up on that. It's a little terrifying. Like it should be. I shouldn't have to be worrying about that, but yeah, here we are. Looking at the schedule, Bucks are at the Cardinals, Falcons are at the Ravens this week, and the Saints at the Browns. Panthers are hosting the Lions. So, I mean, Detroit's playing great football, of course. Then Panthers at Bucks in week 17. Falcons host the Cardinals. Saints at the Eagles. So right there, I'm probably, and then the Panthers at the Saints in the final week of the season, Bucks at the Falcons. So I'm probably out on even thinking about the Saints just because that Eagles game on the schedule.
Yeah.
I think you can, the Cardinals don't look good right now. It's not like I don't know if is it a must-win? Is this kind of must-win game? I don't know if anything's a must-win game. You just need like one win to really lock up the division. But if the Bucks beat the Panthers in week 17, that's probably it. I think I agree with you though. If I'm taking a flyer on something, it's probably the Panthers there at plus 320. Although the Falcons at 22-1, it's not going to be easy. But at the Saints. Oh, excuse me. They played the Saints and lost the Saints. I'm sorry. At the Ravens. Then they have the Cardinals at home, and then then they host the Buccaneers. So like, I don't think they technically control their own destiny, but man, 3 games they could win. Although I certainly don't expect them to. What about the AFC South? Who you got there?
I would go with the Jaguars. I feel much more confident. I mean, we've talked about Trevor Lawrence, just the fact that he seems to be coming on, is looking strong. Feels like the number 1 overall pick, all that kind of stuff we were talking about as he was coming into the league. And I just feel like Tennessee, it's that same conversation we've been having, it feels like since the summer with this team. Everybody that was fading Tennessee was like, well, at some point it does feel like it's going to go on the downturn. For a minute there, they looked like they were going to win it by default. But now you lose that game to the Chargers the last second. These elite quarterbacks are beating you. Tannehill might not be 100%. It's not like Derrick Henry is doing the Derrick Henry things that we've seen in the past as we get later on in the year. It feels like the hot team in that division right now is Jacksonville, so I'll go with them.
Yeah, Jacksonville plus 120. the Titans minus 140 to win, and the Colts 150 to 1 to win. I would also take the plus money with Jacksonville. Think that's the best spot. So both of these teams are going to be the 4 seed, right? Whoever wins this division is going to be the 4 seed.
Mm-hmm.
Dallas is almost certainly now locked into the 5 seed. They've clinched a playoff spot. Philly hasn't clinched a division yet, but they're 3 games back of Philly. That's it's a fait accompli for Dallas to be the 5 seed. Who would you want if you were Dallas to see there? And who would you want to visit if you're Dallas in the 4 seed? Carolina, New Orleans, Atlanta, or obviously Tampa Bay?
I think you would want Carolina.
I think you want Carolina.
Carolina? You want Carolina, right? I mean, I don't want to go to the Superdome because that's just a weird thing. I don't want to see Tom Brady in Tampa.
Exactly.
And I'll take my chances in Carolina and Charlotte against Sam Darnold.
I think with that pass rush and Sam Darnold, and sort of a younger tackles, that's the spot you want. And then finally, it's hard to say who's going to be the 5 seed in the AFC. Cincinnati playing great football. Baltimore's the 5 seed right now, but LA's right there. What's the matchup? Let's say, I think if you're Tennessee, you want the team with the worst run defense, and you just hope Derrick Henry goes nuts.
Which wouldn't that be the Chargers though?
Yeah, but that's it too. They just played them, played them close.
Yeah.
So maybe the Chargers.
I think I'd want Baltimore.
I think I'd want Baltimore too.
I want Baltimore.
And if whoever's the 5 seed, I want Tennessee. I think I want Tennessee, not Jacksonville.
Right.
I think. Like Derrick Henry, I don't want to see Derrick Henry in the playoffs, but the Jaguars are definitely.
I want Tennessee. I don't want a white hot Trevor Lawrence who's coming into his own, getting into the playoffs, and because at least you don't know what that is. You don't know where you could go with that.
Absolutely. All right, that'll do it for us. Press coverage. We broke down. Sully flipped my brain with this AFC South thing. I love it. Maybe they're the worst division of all time. We'll find out over the next few weeks. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. For Sully, I'm Brinson. See you guys later.